So, David, long career in the military. Tell me a little bit about that. When did you get into the military? What branch were you in?
So I went to West Point
Wow.
mainly because I loved reading about military history, and of course, all the World War II generals had attended West Point. Um, I applied early, got in, and made the decision to go, and ended up branching infantry. So I was an Army officer that served in the infantry. I led platoons, which is about 40 guys, companies, which is
Wow.
120, battalions, which is about 700, and then a brigade, which is a couple of thousand folks. Um, I did along the way. I went to Korea for a year. I went to Kosovo for 6 months, Bosnia for 6 months,
Whoa.
3 trips to Iraq, and a trip to Afghanistan. The trip to Afghanistan, I was the battalion commander, which is a 700-person organization, and we had a really tough fight in 2010 and 2011 down in southeast Afghanistan. Um,
Wow.
and so uh, eventually I culminated my career here at Fort Benning, Georgia, which is right down the road from where I am in Columbus, Georgia, as the commander of the Airborne and Ranger Training Brigade. So I ran our airborne school, which produces paratroopers and teaches folks how to fall out of a plane and walk away from it, and also Ranger School, which is the Army's premier small unit leadership school.
Wow.
And so in 17, I transitioned just like you and tried to figure out this corporate world thing.
So before we got on this podcast, one of the things I wanted to ask you was about leadership. And because I think, you hear people say things that are somewhat cliche about, you know, I lead people into battle. I led someone into battle or whatever. You've literally led people into battle. So when you think about what the concept of leadership is or what is a leader, what how would you define leadership or what is a leader?
That's a huge topic. Um,
Sure.
I think the first thing to think about is the movies are a bit cliche on military leadership and this idea that there's this draconian sort of you order folks around and there's instantaneous obedience and all that. Um, you can do that once, especially when you're putting folks in harm's way. Um, but by and large, you have to show that lead by example, show that what you're doing is the right thing to do, and you've got to get buy-in out of the organization. To me, that's one of the biggest sort of misconceptions about the Army is it is you're putting folks in harm's way. During my battalion, I led the 3rd Battalion 187 Infantry in Afghanistan.
Wow.
During our year there in Afghanistan, we lost 3 soldiers and had another 100
Mm.
wounded. And so you're asking folks to do tough stuff. There's lots of emotion involved in doing that. You have to do it in a way that folks want to do it, and that's sort of the art of leadership, not really the science. But that that to me is sort of leadership in sort of the toughest conditions imaginable.
How do you lead people when you are coming off of a loss or coming off of a situation that did not go the way it was supposed to go and people are shook up or they're hurting or they're scared? What does leadership look like in those moments?
Yeah, so the most important thing is what I would call is over communicate at that point in time. And in communication, it's not just talking. One of the skills that we all need to develop better, especially as leaders, is being able to listen and hear the
Mm.
organization, listen to the organization, hear what it's saying, and be able to provide it what it needs. Um, One of the things that the leaders that are listening to this podcast are all going to have to deal with is leading organizational change. And the joke I like to say is, nobody likes change, but they won't be against progress. And so, if you could frame it as progress rather than change, you might get more folks to buy into it. But overcoming that resistance to change, which your company grew from one person to hundreds or even thousands of folks. uh, there was lots of change involved in there, and there was lots of resistance to change.